Welcome to Mostly Minutia. I'm Colleen Lindell. This is episode 32, Jack Summers, Marine Corps Captain, Part 1. My dearest ladies and gentlemen, I, Colleen Lindell, apologize for taking so long to get you, my dear listener, this next episode. All truths be told, I started working on a movie, and I don't usually work on movies. Typically, I work on TV shows. And actually, I haven't worked on a movie since 2010 or 2011. It's been a while. I used to work on them a lot when I lived in Chicago, but I moved to Los Angeles in 2012. And since I moved here, it's been all TV with sprinklings of commercials. So I'm working on this movie. It's shooting entirely in Los Angeles, which I love. It's called Dog Days and is directed by the super fun, funny, and talented Ken Marino. We have a really nice crew. Lots of laughter ensues on a daily basis. You can read a little bit about the film on IMDb if you'd like. Just type in Dog Days. But essentially, we are filming lots of dogs. And we are working pretty full days because filming lots of dogs takes a lot of time. And I'd say I leave the house about 6:15 every morning, and then I get home, I think I'm getting home around 8:30 every night. And on top of that, I've been waking up at 4 a.m. to work on this show. But the movie is only 7 weeks long, so I know there's light at the end of the tunnel I've embarked upon, no pun intended, #DogDays. However, you might be saying, Colleen, why are you waking up at 4 a.m.? What is it that you are doing that could possibly require that much time for this podcast? Well, I will tell you, dear friend. I am editing down the interviews I record. Yes, it's true. Someone must do this, and it might as well be me. In fact, it's only me currently. I edit down the interviews, but I do have strict ethical rules for myself. I never move segments of what people say. Everything is in consecutive order. Also, I never move around words. Cutting and pasting is a big no-no for me. I take out ums and buts and ands a lot. Some people take long pauses while they're thinking of what they want to say next. Some people use a lot of filler words. I am one of them. I like to use the word quite a bit. I like to use the words kind of and basically. I like another pattern of mine. I like to ask a question and then stop myself in the middle of asking that question and then ask a total different question. So basically, what I'm really doing is I'm streamlining the listening process for the listener. And on top of that, I mix the audio. Actually, not quite sure if that's the appropriate word for it. I'm self-taught and I do not know terminology. But what I do know is there are a lot of strange breaths that people take that I like to smooth out, and swallows and mouth noises that absolutely need to be dealt with, that if I did not deal with them, you as the listener, and trust me when I say this, you would not be happy. Some of these sounds are very gross. Sometimes, and this is just the gift that keeps on giving, I take my guest off their story entirely onto a wild tangent that has nothing to do with their story, and we spend 20 minutes talking about that thing. But in the case of Jack Summers, and now you see I've taken you on a tangent, and now we're getting back to this episode 32, Jack Summers, Marine Corps Captain, Part 1. In the case of Jack Summers, he and we had such a great conversation that spanned about 3 hours, a bit over 3 hours. And I had to sift through it, which required lots of listening and then re-listening because honestly, Jack's story is multi-tiered. So this interview with Jack Summers has been one of the most inspiring conversations that I've had. And I guess what I mean to say is it's not very difficult waking up at 4 a.m. if you get to listen to Jack, because he is like a motivational speaker. I wake up at 4, I'm exhausted. by 4:02, I'm totally revitalized. So Jack was recommended to me by a friend, Jim Matlis, who I like to call Fearless Matlis. I don't know if he knows that's what I call him, but in my mind, that's what I like to call him. So big thank you to Jim for recommending Jack to me and even believing that I would do right by Jack in the telling of his story. Jack Summers is a former Marine Corps captain. He entered the Marines in 2006. He was deployed to Afghanistan in 2010, and shortly after his return began experiencing seizures. He became medically separated from the Marine Corps in 2012, and he is the creator of Relobase. And Relobase is an app that helps servicemen and women relocate. This episode is the first of 2 installments on Jack's story. Think of part 1 as Marine Corps 101. In this episode, I ask Jack all questions Marine Corps. So if you've ever been confused about the Marine Corps and how it operates, like I was, this will help you better understand. We also talk about how Jack grew up, his parents, college, all the way up to his deployment to Afghanistan and his time serving there. And then part 2 encompasses Jack's life post-Afghanistan, and that episode will be up next week. I think that's all. Please enjoy meeting and getting to know Jack. So I feel in our short time of conversing with each other via email and on the phone, I feel like I've learned about you that you've lived like 3 lifetimes already in like a short amount of time. I don't know if you feel that way. Do you feel that way?
Yeah. I've been really fortunate, I think. We've discussed it before, but some of the different things that have come up, some of the problems that I've run into or disappointments that I've run into, I've, been able to find something on the other side that seemed like a better opportunity. Mm-hmm. With that, to kind of go, not too far down the rabbit hole on it, is I've always attacked those opportunities the same way. And that's like just being me. And so my life has definitely been filled with some really hilarious experiences and some pretty wild times. And I'm sure most of my friends and family can attest to those, typically leading to really, really rough hangovers. But yeah, we've had, I've had a great life.
Jack, I feel so honored to be talking with you today because I've never in my life have known someone who's been a Marine Corps captain. I feel like I'd like to just start in the beginning, which I do with some people.
Cool.
Just start with the beginning with your family, like the type of family that you grew up in. And, how does one become a Marine Corps captain? What is the pathway to that? And is that something that you started off wanting to achieve?
I guess taking it back to my family. So I'm 4th of 6, Irish Catholic family, James, Mary, Paul, John, Margaret, Elizabeth. And my mom and dad, Ann and Todd, they've been married for, it's got to be 38 years. Sorry, mom and dad, if I don't get that right. It's something, they've been married the whole time and still happily married, living in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And I was the 4th, so I was, primed to get picked on, for most of my childhood until I got bigger than my brothers. That's right, I said it. Paul and Jim. But yeah, my childhood was awesome. I was given so many amazing opportunities. My parents made tremendous sacrifices, continue to. But I didn't grow up thinking, hey, I want to be a Marine or I want to, go into the Navy or the Army. I didn't think really much about it. I had a grandpa, like we were talking about earlier, you had 2 grandpas, mm-hmm. right, that were both in World War II or Korean War. I had my grandpa, Lucky Summers, still lives in Chicago. He is now 93, 94.
His name is Lucky?
Lucky. Yeah. It's amazing.
Lucky Summers.
Lucky Summers, exactly. So he was in and retired as an officer in the Navy, and then 2 of his sons, which are my uncles, of course, and one is named Lucky as well. My Uncle Lucky and my Uncle Scott, they both joined the Navy and were in Vietnam War. But I didn't really know much about this. It wasn't hidden from me, but for whatever reason, I wasn't really aware of it, and I didn't know, just how special this was. I didn't understand how, unique those communities like the Navy and the Marine Corps and the Army and Air Force, but collectively as service members and as veterans, there's something that's so special about that group. That's why people, have bumper stickers that say retired Marine or retired Navy or something. You don't really see so many people saying, retired Ford employee. With that, I didn't really know too much about it. And I ended up going to school. And the reason why I joined was I was fortunate enough. I went into a fraternity that my brother was in and kind of followed his footsteps into Phi Gamma Delta at University of Iowa. And I ran for president second semester of my sophomore year, was fortunately enough elected. It was an amazing experience. And I kind of came back and wanted more of that leadership opportunity. And so I re-ran beginning of my junior year, was, fortunately enough, again, elected. And we ended up getting caught drinking on campus. Surprise, surprise, And it was kind of this black mark that I looked at on my resume, if you will, of just, not that I care if people are like, oh my gosh, it was on your watch, like, you're the guy who's responsible. I felt that way, but I felt more responsible to my friends. And whether they would say it or not, I always believed that they were like, man, is there something he could have done differently to make sure? But I went first semester junior year, and I just was not good at just being a student. I mean, I was just bored, and I was getting into a lot of fights. I was doing, just doing things that weren't productive and weren't developing me in a positive way. I asked my parents to talk to him, and I said, hey, I want to try to walk onto the Iowa football team. It sounded like a good way to redirect my energy and focus and get back on the right path. And so I started training for maybe a month or two, and then I got an email. And I still remember to this day, I was in the University of Iowa library. I could probably point out the seat sitting there on a computer. I could point it out if I walked in there. And I got an email that said, hey, there's this thing called Officer Candidate School. It's tough. It's challenging, mentally, physically. We'll pay you. It's, no obligation. It's 10 weeks in Quantico, Virginia. And I was like, that's it.
You just knew.
Yeah. And I actually, I called my parents. I got up, called my parents at the library right there. And I said, hey, Mom, hey, Dad. And we always conference call. So my mom and Dad,
they're always on the phone together with you.
It's amazing. It's really awesome. And I just said, hey, I know we talked about this, walk-on opportunity, but I just got an email, and it's for this thing called Officer Candidate School. It's in Quantico, Virginia. It's for the Marine Corps. I'm going to do it. And they're like, okay, well, we can talk about it. And obviously, like, we want to hear more about it. And I'm like, this is the talk. I'm like, I'm doing this. This is for me. And I remember saying, this is to figure out if I'm the leader who I believe I am. My purpose was to figure out if I was the leader who I believed I was and am. And OCS was the vehicle. And it was like very clear to me. As soon as I read the email, I was like, this is the ultimate challenge. Like, if I were to fail, my life, I feel like would have gone, there would have been a total different trajectory or kind of path. This was like a critical moment in my life to be like, figure it out.
And what did OCS stand for again?
Officer Candidate School.
Officer Candidate School. Yeah. And just backing up a little bit to growing up, had you ever been in leadership positions before? Yeah,
I've always, whether it's captain, captain of the football team and track team and, the leadership, it's the most fascinating part of any team or group exercise.
So you were captain of the football team in high school?
I was captain of the football team in high school, co-captains there were a few of us.
Okay.
And then I was co-captain of the track team as well.
Wow.
So yeah, I loved it.
Is this something that you, like, your classmates voted you into, or like how did
It's
because people can only be leaders because others allow them to be.
yeah.
Or I guess sometimes there's a leader and somebody else rises up and takes out that leader in order to become a leader.
Yeah, go for
it. Right? That happens.
Yeah. I think in my case, I would hope, and this is a good question for those that have been on my team and have worked with me, is I would like to believe, and I'm confident, that I foster a team environment and a space and place that people can be themselves. And I love seeing people excel. I love seeing people do more than they thought they could do. Like, that is like the best feeling in the world to me. I don't think, I never came into any team and was like, you guys will listen to me. You guys will. Like, if I tell you that you're going to do it, like, I do it too. You'll know it. Like, I'll either do it right next to you or I'll do it in front of you, or you'll see me do it. But either way, like, I like leading in that way because it gives me confidence, because I know that I know what these guys are going through. And whether it's, you're doing doubles in high school football, and, as much as you don't want to keep running because you're done, like, you keep running until the last guy's done. Or you keep working with someone, or you stay after practice and, you do the necessary things to get a little bit better and get you guys better. The Marine Corps was the ultimate challenge. But it was also the ultimate reward, is leading Marines, and in many cases, Marines leading me.
How do you choose the branch of the military that you go into? Like, because you chose the Marines, but there's the Army and there's the Navy. How do you choose for you? Did you read about the other branches? Or was this, because you said it came to you as an email. So did you just read this and you were like, that's it?
Yeah.
Like, you knew that was it.
So to me, I remember the Lava Man commercial back in the day, where it's a Marine killing this lava monster, and it's, the few, the proud, the Marines. Like, I still remember that, and maybe just brilliant marketing, So there was always this mystique and this kind of, there was something about the Marine Corps that always had my interest of all the branches. However, one of my mentors, his name's Matt Hanks. He's an enlisted Marine. He'd already gone over to Iraq. And so when I saw this opportunity come up with the Marine Corps, it just seemed like the stars aligned, if you will. Like, one of my mentors, who then joined the Marines and, was your quintessential Marine. He was just, the guy is fierce. He's a fighter. He's intelligent. He's got all the right attributes. And so I was just like, man, this is it. Like, this is my chance to kind of follow, one of my mentors. But there is a really quick and funny story. So obviously, like I said, my grandpa's Navy, my two uncles are Navy. And at the time, my grandma, she, I told them that, hey, I'm doing this OCS thing. And my grandpa and everybody was super supportive. They're like, go for it, Jack. This is great. This could be a great challenge, But my grandma kind of snuck in a little jab one time where she was like, well, so how did we lose you to the Marine Corps? And it was the only time that anyone had ever said, ever mentioned the fact that we had Navy running in our, in our blood. And then there I go to the Marine Corps. But the other reason is I really believed that the Marine Corps was only infantry. And this is a total oversight on my behalf, because there's way more options and opportunities within the Marine Corps, umbrella. But I thought it was just infantry. And at that time, as soon as I knew, it's like Marine Corps, Matt Hanks in Iraq, I'm like, this is my chance. Like, I can fight and I want to fight. And the Marine Corps to me was only infantry. So I was like, if I want to fight, I'm going to join the Marine Corps. And this is my chance. Like, this is it right now. And it was so clear to me that opportunity was everything that I was looking for.
Can you define what infantry is?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're a bunch of knuckle draggers, I guess. No, I'm just joking. No, it's actually, so the Marine, infantry in general, infantry are, the guys and gals now that are kicking in doors. They're on the front lines. They're the tip of the spear. They operate in, groups between 12, 13, which is a squad, all the way up to, battalion, division level, 5,000 plus. And so the infantry are the ones that when deployed, you're really going into the fight. You're going in, you're kicking down doors, you're making sure that, you're taking it to the enemy. Physically, personally taking it to the enemy. Then you have the infantry is ultimately the most supported element in the military. And within the infantry, you obviously, you've got some incredibly intelligent, fit, experienced, motivated. I mean, guys they're through the roof. And then you obviously have some of the other kind of special operations and special forces, Navy SEALs, Marine Recon, Marine Special Operations Command. You've got a lot of these other groups that are, kind of satellites, if you think about it. And they're floating around, the most supported unit being like, how can we also help?
How does somebody get swept up into the Navy SEALs, for instance? Is that is it like you enlist as a Marine and then somebody on the inside views certain skills that you have or certain skill set that you have, and then you get asked to be how does that happen for people?
So
they always seem like mysteries to me.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a really good question as well. I can speak to certainly the Marine Corps firsthand. I will be careful about what I say on the other sides, in the other branches, because I'm not entirely sure what those processes look like. Mm-hmm. But with the Marine Corps, you can break it down into officer and enlisted. And from the start, these are two separate tracks. Now, enlisted doesn't necessarily require that you have a college degree. It does require a high school diploma or GED.
Okay.
An officer does require a college degree. Now, there's far fewer officers. There's about 20%. So there's, 230,000 officers or so in the military. And then the remaining, almost a million or just over a million, that's the enlisted. So just side note, officers, we are here to support the enlisted service member. That's why we had a job. That's why I had a job, was to support the enlisted. But when you're an enlisted or an officer and you're going through, kind of getting ready for boot camp, an enlisted will take an ASVAB, which I can't even remember what that stands for, but it's some military acronym, I assure you. And it's kind of like a placement exam. So depending on how they score, the government, the branch in particular, will identify, what skill sets they possess, where they scored highest, lowest, and determine, hey, now it's placement time. Once they determine or have some ideas, then they're going to eventually go into boot camp. And in that boot camp, that's the real screening and evaluation. Okay. At that point, then it's they kind of know where they're thinking about pushing you, but during that boot camp, they're making additional evaluations and being okay, where this guy's made it to the 5th week, now we need to start thinking about exactly where we're going to put him. And some people, you don't always get what you want. At that point, think about it. The government is investing in you as an instrument or an asset within this military. Mm-hmm. They want to place you where you will be best utilized.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Jack, just to get this straight, and this might just be from me, I might take this out of here, but just to get this straight, when people go to boot camp, everyone's going to boot camp, and it's not like you're going to a boot camp that's for the Marines. Everyone goes to boot camp, and then you get
it is sifted. individual branches.
Okay.
Yeah, so Army has Army boot camp. Marine Corps has Marine Corps boot camp, Navy, et cetera. Air Force, yeah.
And then based on the boot camp, like your time there, then they will evaluate where you can fit within the Marines, for instance. And the Marine Corps is different than just being in the Marines.
No, same thing. Yeah, okay. Marine Corps, Marines, same organization.
When I think of Marines, just so you know what I think about,
This is good.
I mean,
because there's some really, there's some answers on both sides of the.
This is like my word association. I see Semper Fi.
Yeah.
I think of Marines as being very fierce, like the most fierce. I don't know why. They seem like really badass, and maybe that's because maybe I've just subconsciously known that they're the front lines people. I think of, is it American Beauty? I don't know if you've seen that movie, but I think her father.
It's been a while.
I think like the other side of it is, besides being badass, I always think about like really stodgy, older, mean, yelling, like
salty,
like older people. But I feel like that's a generational thing that maybe has passed. And that was a question I have for you is like, how have you seen, what do you see with this new generation, or like these men and women that are in their 20s and 30s that are in the Marines, must look very, very different than what I'm picturing, which is probably like, my grandpa fought in World War II, and I'm probably thinking about people that are from like that great generation being very militant. I don't know. I just think about people being very militant, but I'll tell you, you're the second Marine that I've met, and you guys are totally not like that at all. Like, I think I told you about my friend Mark Hawley, he has a company called Atlas Defense. He teaches situational awareness in Minneapolis. Both of you guys are super on point, very vibrant, excited, high energy, very intelligent. I don't know. What do you think about all these things that I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, one, so many service members that I know, and Marines in particular, I mean, we hold those that have gone before us. I mean, just they're the ones we look up to. And there's something that should be really humbling about knowing that these guys did something that was great, that they didn't have social media. They didn't have a lot of these other opportunities to collect or to be recognized or to be given some gratitude. I mean, I'll go up to anyone if I see Vietnam, especially, but World War II or Korean War or any veteran hat, I'll go up and I'll just say thank you for your service. I think it's an obligation that I have. I think that I would hope that most people have that have served, that are in this generation. You look at some of the guys from the greatest generation, and even all the way to the Gulf War. You just gotta tip your hat to them, and just say thank you and listen to them. Ask them about what they did and what their experiences were, and kind of soak it in. I think it's important to pass that on. I think it's important to keep that in the family, if you will. That type of stuff. Most people can walk up and thank a veteran, and we appreciate it. It's huge, but not many people can ask, hey, what unit were you with, or where was your duty station, or you were in Vietnam, where, or you were in Afghanistan, where, when, and have really relevant information pertaining to the answer. That's important. I think I like to keep that and kind of keep it alive and make sure that these generations and these wars and our experiences are bridged, and that they're not isolated. And then the guys, being fierce, I'll introduce you to some fierce Marines for sure.
Well, you're one of them.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome. I appreciate it.
How did you learn how to be such a good listener?
Wow, I'm still trying to figure that one out.
It's hard to learn, I think. It's like it takes somebody recognizing that there's an opportunity to listen, or that they can listen. Yeah.
There's so much to learn. It's like the best way to learn. It's almost strange to answer why I'm a good listener, I don't even think I'm a good listener. You know?
Well, the reason why I brought it up is because you were talking about your mentor, Matt Hanks.
Yeah.
So I think in order to even say like, oh, this person's my mentor, or recognize like, oh, I have these people as mentors, your ears have to be open to hearing somebody and be willing to let somebody else invest in you. Yeah. So that's why I'm asking. Maybe I should ask a different question.
No.
Like, how did you recognize that you wanted Matt as your mentor, or that he was a mentor for you?
Each mentor that I have is, it's slightly different, of course, and unique and special to me. But every mentor that I have kind of has the X factor. Doesn't mean that they're going to be the most successful person by some folks' standards. It's that they're willing to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And when they're vulnerable, they're the best listeners. And it's like, it's so painful that, that existence, that state of being vulnerable and forcing yourself to listen when all you want to do is close everything out and, almost like just do it your way because you just have to go. It's like my mentors just when, in that state, they're just like, and just perk up and they're like, need to get information. And I think that among many other traits, I think that's one of like the best things about my mentors.
Yeah, it's like they can prioritize, just put everything aside.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. Like, I don't even think I'm a good listener because I can be so much better.
There's room for all of us to grow in that area for sure. So how long were you in the Marines for? How many years were you serving?
Yeah, I served for 5.5 years.
And you were deployed?
Yeah, I was twice deployed.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Because
Sure.
Just so people understand like your life during your service time.
Yeah. So I was in 5.5 years. For about a year of that, I was stationed out in Quantico, Virginia. This doesn't include officer candidate school, but kind of the Cliff Notes version, if you will. Every officer in the Marine Corps goes through this course called the Basic School. And it's a 6-month program or course that educates you on how to be a provisional rifle platoon commander. Ultimately, it's like the foundation for a Marine Corps officer. And this is all aviators all the way to infantry officers. And TBS is much like the enlisted process where you don't know exactly what you're going to do in the Marine Corps at this point. You are getting evaluated. You're in the Marines. So I was a second lieutenant, and you're in a class of 375 other second lieutenants for the most part.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a lot. It's a really good time if you allow it to be. So I had made some phenomenal friends. I mean, several of my best friends are from TBS. And so I did TBS, and I was fortunately enough selected to be an infantry officer. And so immediately following TBS, I then went to IOC, which is called Infantry Officers Course. 13 weeks, super intense, amazing program.
Also in Virginia?
Also in Virginia. Yeah, it's like right next door to the basic school, to actual like the barracks and the classrooms and all that type of stuff. So I did IOC, and then I was stationed. I was then given orders to be stationed out at Camp Pendleton with 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, called the Magnificent Bastards. They're a good group. They're amazing. So I came out to Camp Pendleton October 17th, 2008, and was there until December 31st, 2012. So during that time, I deployed twice. The first one was what's called a MU, a Marine Expeditionary Unit. It's 3 ships that basically sail out, and, we've got a battalion of Marines, so all together, maybe 900 or 1,000 Marines, something like that, on these 3 ships that we all coast out. We take off for about 7 months. And I had the really awesome opportunity to be the visit board search and seizure platoon commander. And this is essentially your anti-piracy capability. So this was right after the Captain Phillips thing happened, right off the coast of Somalia and Djibouti, Africa, and Yemen and stuff. My leaders, my mentors, got the memo that we needed this VBSS element stood up. And I, right place, right time, they selected me to lead this group. We went through an amazing shooting package, did some really, really unique training that's usually reserved for Force Recon, which is like Force Recon and Marine Special Operations Command are like the two most specialized units within the Marine Corps. The actual unit itself, to be the visiboard search and seizure, it's broken into two elements. You kind of have an assault and a security unit. The assault element is really meant for special operations style, caliber guys, like highly specialized. They know how to conduct themselves with the various tasks and responsibilities that they have, just to a degree where you're like, whoa, that dude's like a true professional. Like he's got it down. Mind you, the visiboard search and seizure, little background on it, is you can either go top down or bottom up. And what that means is if a ship is seized by pirates, okay, so the pirates take over the ship, that's where a visiboard search and seizure platoon would come in. And the Navy SEALs have conducted these operations. So have Marine Recon or Recon Marines. And you can go top down, which is like 4 helicopters come in and you drop a rope out of the middle of the helicopter. It's called the hellhole. You drop a rope and you literally slide down this rope, and they do this for all 4 of your elements that are going on to like take control of this ship. And then from there, I mean, you scatter like ants, but in, this methodical way, and you're basically clearing all the spaces. I mean, you kind of want to move like water essentially over and through this ship and its rooms. So you can do that, or you can go bottom up. And bottom up is an opportunity for smaller boats that can shoot up to the side of a ship, throw, some hooks over for a ladder, and then take over from there. So we were a top down. So we had a lot of training in, this fast roping. On the 11th MEU, that was me and my unit. We got to do this VBSS thing. Never conducted any combat operations, just training exercises, but it was super sweet. A couple months before we were set to arrive home, we got this task to say, hey, we need a group to deploy to Afghanistan. At that time, while we're deployed, my CO, my commanding officer, everybody was kind of bummed because we weren't going to Afghanistan at this point. Everybody wanted to go to Afghanistan. This is 2009, going into 2010. I mean, people are just, every Marine is itching. I mean, it's all infantry guys. We're all itching to get into the fight. I mean, we're training, we're prepping every day to go to combat, but yet then we deploy and they're like, no combat for you guys. And you're like, come on, like we've been training for this. Give us what we want. And so that deployment was, it was tough to keep dudes motivated, to keep guys like completely in on saying, hey, maybe you're going to deploy to Afghanistan when you guys get back, or your next deployment will be to Afghanistan. So like start prepping.
Wait, so are you saying, because you guys were training, you guys were at sea and you were training at sea, and you're saying you were told there that you were going to deploy to Afghanistan. So then people were frustrated because their focus had been in one direction, and they were saying, oh, actually, we're going to shift things. We're taking you guys over here. Yeah. This is where you're going now. What? So you're saying it was hard to keep people motivated because of that reason? It was
hard to keep people motivated. It's hard to stay motivated, and too, like this is everybody before that first deployment. Everybody knew that it was going to be a MEU, a Marine Expeditionary Unit. We're going to go out on ship. Like that's not awe-inspiring to many, especially infantry guys. We're like, dude, take us to combat, send us over to Afghanistan. Like, let us show you what we can do. So going on this MEU, it's tough to get people really riled up about that. Be like, yeah, we're going to get on a ship and hang out. It's for 7 months. You know?
On the water.
On the water. Follow me.
Just us.
Come on. You know, people are like, no thanks. Like, not what I signed up for. So it was tough up to that point. But why this story has significance is we were on ship. There's so many reasons why people can just kind of toss in the towel and just say, hey guys, just, you know, make sure you're lifting, making sure you're working out. We'll have, you know, an occasional class here or there every week. And you guys will, you know, we'll do counselings or whatever, you know, you do your maintenance. Your maintenance, exactly. Yeah. But to be proactive and actually lean into something that is not scheduled is really difficult. And my CO, Major Moore, then Captain, now Major Moore, he just didn't let that fly. He was like, you platoon commanders will be giving briefs every week on current status and, you know, draw the picture or paint the picture of what Afghanistan looked like. Of not just like current, you know, kind of what things are going on and how we can prep to get there. We don't know we're going to go there. We have no idea. No one has told us at this point that anybody is going. But he's like, you need to be ready to go there.
You need to act like you're going tomorrow.
Exactly. And so, I mean, we went through kind of like history lessons, and we taught these really extensive and super valuable courses to our Marines, which, I mean, hopefully they took something away from it. I'm sure they did. I mean, these things were awesome. And it was all because one guy decided not to just let the status quo be the status quo. And that was my CO. And he was like, negative. Like, you guys, not on my watch. This dude is obsessed with preparing. He is like the best at it. And he taught me a ton about that. It was just his vision to say, hey, get ready, because you never know when it's going to come. And after 2 to 3 months of doing these weekly briefs, sure enough, what happened? We get tasked to go to Afghanistan. And my guys were so prepped and ready. I mean, they were itching to go, and then we got tapped to go. And it wasn't this, you know, pardon me, it wasn't this like, oh shit moment. It was like this, oh yes, like we're ready. I was fortunately enough selected to lead them. We brought all the company leadership. Once again, credit to my CO. He had all of us basically build the element to be the most badass group of dudes. I mean, you had everything like assaultmen, machine gunners, mortarmen, snipers, you know, intel Marines, just normal straight-legged infantry guys. And it was called for 60 dudes. And all of us, the leadership, enlisted and officers, we all came together on the ship and just systematically built this machine, which was going to be the 60-man unit. And then the final 2 guys, they were selected by my CO himself. And that was my right-hand man, Joseph Perez, who was staff sergeant at the time, and then me to actually like lead the group.
So just to give also the listener an understanding of what Afghanistan was like, because as many service people, as you know, I mean, that's like your world, but you have to know there's so many people that just don't understand that world at all. And we hear things like, you know, this person was deployed, and I don't understand the weight of that, of what that means for you guys, or like deployed to where? Like, okay, I understand you went to Afghanistan, but like, where did you go? And I know like different branches of the military get stationed in different places, right? And given different assignments. So for you guys, what was your assignment and what was your station?
Yeah. So when we deployed to Afghanistan, you're absolutely correct. So Afghanistan was segmented into or split into 4 segments. Branches as well as countries are given certain quadrants, you know. I can't remember who was on the top 2, But if you think about Afghanistan, running from northeast to southwest, you have the Hindu Kush Mountains. And kind of at the base, at the bottom point of the Hindu Kush Mountains on the southwest corner, that's kind of the epicenter. That's like the point where all 4 regions meet.
Wow.
And so you have like this northeast region, which contains most of the Hindu, quite a bit of the Hindu Kush Mountains. And I think that was Germany. I can't quite remember. And then you have the northwest. I think that was Italy and some other NATO allies. And then then you have the southwest, which is the Marines. Mm-hmm. It's really desert, but I'll kind of explain a little bit about what you would see if you were, in Afghanistan. And then in the southeast, that's the Army. They kind of have a little bit of everything over there. I mean, they've got the Hindu Kush Mountains rolling from, kind of 1/4 of their area of operations, their AO. And then you also have, obviously some major cities, Kandahar, you have, more of the urban environments as well as super rural as it starts to, branch out and kind of feed into the countryside. So as we kind of go there, it's big picture, as we zoom in a little bit more into the Marine Corps area of operations, which is RC Southwest. It's Regional Command Southwest. Our area it looked like if you go to 29 Palms, that's really kind of what it looks like. I mean, it's these rolling hills in the distance, but a lot of it is super flat. And the area two areas that where I was located, one was called Delram. It was actually called Delram 2. Really quiet area. We were able to interact with the local population. Mm-hmm. They're super amazing people. Afghans, and Afghani is the currency. So, Afghans were in this area were really supportive. They were not as highly volatile or threatened by, then Taliban or just, in general insurgents and fighters. And so there was a level of comfort. Yet my guys were remarkably diligent and remained focused on the fact that anything could happen whenever. Fortunately enough, we didn't have to really worry about that. There were, no skirmishes or anything like that. Some random idea like indirect fire and different things, but really nothing of note. And on this, my deployment to Afghanistan was 4 months. So it was kind of this quick turnaround into a quick deployment. So about halfway through, so after about 2 months, we linked up with another mentor of mine. And at the time, he was Captain Ryan Cohen, now Major Ryan Cohen. Absolutely incredible guy. Always has a dip in, is just your man's man, like take the hill. This dude leads from the front. I actually still have one of his voicemails on my phone. And I have one from Isaac Moore as well. I'd love to play him. I don't know if that's appropriate.
Yes,
but
of course.
Yeah, it's there. And then like my third, and I'll just really quickly go this direction, then I'll come back. Promise. Is then my other mentor is Colonel Bill Vivian, and I have one voicemail saved from all 3 of them, and they're all different styles of leadership. You can hear it in their voicemails. So, and so I met up with Ryan Cohen, with Captain Cohen, now Major Cohen, and my right-hand man, Joseph Perez. We're sitting there at our base, Delram 2, and we get a kind of a memo, or somebody says something. We hear that Captain Cohen's coming on base, and we're like, let's go meet up with him. I mean, at this point, we're providing security for this large base. I mean, these guys, all of my Marines, these are the best of the best from within the infantry. And I mean, they have skill sets just coming out of their eyeballs. And I've got them sitting on post, for 8-hour shifts, basically ensuring that like the base is secure and safe. Huge responsibility, but like these guys were a little bit overqualified for that. And I knew it, Perez knew it. And so we met with Captain Cohen, And Perez and I walked into it being like, dude, we just got to get him to convince people to get us out of here. I mean, take us to the fight. Like, let's go yesterday, now.
Yeah.
I don't care. Let's go. And he was in the fight. I mean, you could tell. We wanted to help him. We wanted to help his unit. And we knew that his unit was getting tried and tested. Somehow, it worked out that they requested about 29 guys from my unit. And so sure enough, within a couple of weeks, we were out in a new area, which is called Sangin. And this was a summer 2010. He was deep in the fight and they needed some reinforcements. And it wasn't to his company. It was to essentially like free up other units. And we went into a new base, and it's called a forward operating base, FOB. And we went to this FOB in Sangin with my 29 guys, and we basically took posts there. We stood security. But I pitched the commanding officer. I said, hey, we can't just stay here. We're like sitting ducks. If you want to secure this base, we have to be offensive. We have to get out there. We can't be just reactive. We've got to be proactive. And they understood that. And so they said, good to go. You prep your unit. You give me everything. You give me all the operational demos, schemes, strategies. And sure enough, they, approved a couple, and then they approved more. And they basically got to the point where they said, hey, Summers, you are in charge now. And you and your guys need to be patrolling, constantly, which was amazing. I mean, my guys, they were in their element. I mean, in Afghanistan, I felt more in my element there than I ever have in my life. There's a sense of purpose that's so profound and it's so simple that everything is clear. The noise is gone. There's just like mission and men. And you're just so laser focused on that like nothing else matters. Nothing else, even your brain doesn't even spend a second or waste a second thinking about anything else other than that. And so, my guys performed phenomenally, and they just did an incredible job. My platoon's name was Outlaw, which is amazing. I still, shout out to all the outlaws out there. It was all in all a remarkable experience. I am so proud and forever indebted to the way my guys performed and to the sacrifices that they made. It was definitely not an easy time for anyone there, but
when you say it like it wasn't an easy time for everybody, do you just mean because of the position that you guys were put in, and that because what do you mean by that?
I think, well, I speak to one in particular. We lost a Marine in this group of 29 in Sangin, Corporal C.J. Boyd. And it was on August 19th, 2010. And, these guys were really close. I as a platoon commander, I was in charge of one platoon. Now, this new platoon, these are guys coming from all the other platoons too. Mm-hmm. So some of these folks, they knew me. I knew of them. They knew of me, but they had a different leader. So when these guys came to me, when I had the chance to be their platoon commander, there was little time to forge new relationships. These guys had, they were friends for years and years. And now, I'm a new leader for them. Mm-hmm. And so, my job in those 3 to 4 weeks that we had before we deployed was really just to listen and figure out who's who. Outside of what I already knew, I needed to know more about who the power players were, who were the key influencers, who were the folks that I needed to know better than anybody. And, that's in 3 weeks, it's tough to do. It's tough. And so,
how do you figure something like that out? Do you just have to like do different exercises?
Yeah.
In order to,
yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think also part of it is you need to rapidly iterate. and test your assumptions so quickly or as fast as you can. So you're like, if this guy's a key leader, then I want to see now. Like, I want to figure out now if he is. Okay, assign him, some type of task or give him an assignment that he'll prove it or he will disprove your assumption. I mean, you can do that really quickly. Those should be your largest assumptions, because then you can actually place the assignments on them to make the assumptions for you. You'd be like, okay, I know that this guy's solid. Like, I knew he was solid before, but now I know he's really solid in this area too. So now I want him to test these other folks, and now I'm going to evaluate them, and I'm going to talk to him about how he read the situation, what he saw. Now you get this back and forth, and now you can really learn about like how capable your unit is, what they're best at, what they're not good at, what they love to do, what they don't like to do, who's the very best at in one particular area, who's right behind him. That was my job going into this, was to make that assessment and be as accurate as possible, so that I didn't have to rely on too much time listening. I could listen quickly, figure it out as fast as possible, know that there's, a variance, that there will be some failure, but I need to minimize that as much as possible. That's what I did. But then going into it, why I say it was tough for some is obviously CJ Boyd was super close with a lot of these guys, and a lot of our guys, as the same with me, we had never experienced, death in that way. We had never seen a friend go like that. Some of the guys did. Some of the guys had experience from Iraq and Afghanistan, and you can prepare guys for a lot of different things that they may or may not encounter. This is one that humans aren't supposed to experience that. It's very abnormal. And so, I saw really some of his close friends lose a friend. And naturally, it's on my watch. Like, that's one of my Marines. But more than anything, it's one of their best friends. And so I've always been so proud of my guys, how they handled themselves in Afghanistan. But that in particular, it's very easy for people to, to close off and just say, F it, give me time. Like, I don't want to go out and patrol right now. And these were not those guys. I mean, they were crushed. They were hurt, but they wasted no time continuing on with the mission and understanding that, his sacrifice, Corporal Boyd's sacrifice, was in lieu of us accomplishing the mission. And these guys had a mature and, really just a remarkable way to handle that.
Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah.
Now, when you were saying before that you felt like Marines have led you. Yeah. Can you describe that a little bit more, like what you mean by that? Because I think that's a really, I feel like that's a good characteristic of a leader also, is to let the people who gather around them also, that they can learn from the people who are gathered around them. Yeah. But what does that mean to you, like when you say that?
It means I've never been a hands-on-hips type leader. When I say Marines have led me, I mean, they're all probably laughing right now as they listen to this. Just there's so many funny stories about me just being like, I don't have the answer. I mean, straight up, like, I can give you guys, like, here's the idea, here's the vision, here's what I'm thinking. But hey, Sergeant Duvall, I need you right now. Like, what do you think, man? Tell me just straight, like, not going to hurt my feelings. And he'd be like, well, sir, your plan's crap, And I'll be like, okay, cool. Like, how can we make it not crap? Like, what can we do? And this is, for many officers, I was unorthodox. I encouraged my enlisted Marines to help me, to talk, to give me as much information as possible so that I can develop the right plan for them, for us. But that couldn't be done just by myself. Not effectively, at least.
Yeah.
And that was it. You know, it was really understanding that, like, I didn't have all the answers, and I didn't want anyone to think I had all the answers. I wanted them to be confident in my ability to quickly assess a situation and find a likely course of action that will succeed. Mm-hmm. And my enlisted Marines were like, they were the answer. Mm-hmm. They were the guys. It wasn't, God bless, you know, my officer friends and folks, but many of my mentors who are officers would be the first to tell you, and they would echo, and they would be like, Jack, that's, you know, they have taught me this, not through actually making me listen to it. They've taught me what I'm saying right now by their actions. Mm-hmm. You know, they didn't need to bring all the officers together to develop the plan. They were like, screw that. Mm-hmm. Let's get all the enlisted. Let's get the senior enlisted. Let's get the actual squad leaders. Let's get the fire team leaders. You know, these guys who are really boots on the deck, kicking in doors. You know, they're in there. Let's get their opinion. And your enlisted Marines were the answer to that. They are the answer to that. They're the ones who can, you know, confirm, or, I mean, they can really assist you with developing that plan.
Well, plus, aren't there always advisory boards to everything? I mean, there can't just be, like, if someone's just leading with no advice, no advisors at all, then that's tyranny, right?
Yeah, but the interesting part with this is, if I may describe military, obviously there's a huge difference between enlisted and officer. As it is structured in the military, enlisted report to officers. The most senior enlisted in the Marine Corps still serves a salute to the most junior officer in the Marine Corps. Now, that junior Marine officer best well know that this is, you know, the sergeant major of the Marine Corps, and, you know, he may salute you, but, like, don't think for a second you've got anything on him. You know, this guy has 40 years of Marine Corps experience. Like, he is the wealth of knowledge that you're seeking. But that's how the system, that's how the structure is. It goes enlisted, junior enlisted, all the way to senior enlisted. And then, boom, on top of senior enlisted starts junior officer. So when you first, you know, as I was talking about TBS, you go to TBS as an officer, and then you go to your follow-on MOS, Military Occupational Specialty School. For me, it was infantry. For others, it's communications, logistics, you know, intel, whatever. You go to that course, and then after that, you're pretty much sent out to a unit to become a leader of sorts. You could be in charge of 4 dudes or 2 guys and gals, you know, or you could be in charge of 150 and be a company commander, like, right on the spot. You don't exactly know. But when you arrive there, everybody, I mean, 80% of the folks in that unit are saluting you, are saying yes sir or yes ma'am. And so there's this power that you're now given, you know, that they have entrusted in you to carry responsibly. Nowhere does it actually, are there specific taskers to officers to listen to their enlisted Marines. It's this implied task that you will gather information accordingly and as effectively and as efficient as possible. To the manner to which, how you gather that or who you gather it from, that's totally up to you. So if you can see, there's this disparity between power and the actual, you know, method to the madness.
Right.
And what I found to be the best method was listening as much as possible to the enlisted Marines. As much as I could learn from them, I would be a better officer. The better I was as an officer, the more I could serve my enlisted Marines. And it just keeps going. It's just this awesome cycle. Mm-hmm. But there were other officers who didn't agree with me on that. The unfortunate thing, I have no beef or problem with those officers per se, However, if I would ever see their Marines negatively impacted by their actions, by the officers' actions, then that really pissed me off. Yeah, that didn't make me happy.
Do you watch Game of Thrones?
So, no, I don't, actually.
Okay.
But I know, I think I'm one of like a handful of people on this great
I was just wondering.
nerds, but
it's not a big deal. I was just wondering when you do, you should let me know what character you feel like you relate to.
Okay.
Like from a battle standpoint.
Yeah, for sure.
You might find it interesting.
Like yeah.
And all these different leaders who are in charge of these different parts of the land and stuff. And then this is just like really off topic, but what do you think about like first person shooter video games and like Hurt Locker, for instance? And I mean, I guess war movies in general, but like, what do you think about like all these depictions of military in the entertainment industry?
Yeah, I think it's a slippery slope. I think they're ultimately dangerous, far more dangerous than helpful. I believe that. They desensitize youth and young folks that have they've got like sponges for brains, and given this opportunity to soak up some really like dangerous content. I'm not going to say that you can't play these video games. It's the amount that these video games are played. The false sense of consequences, you die in a video game, you die, you get a new life. But the realism of killing and of engaging in combat gives you this sense like you know it, even though you've never been there, but you know it, you feel it, you know how to like turn a corner or dig a corner or go into a room or kick down a door, or you have all these tactics kind of locked down, in your mind. You're pretty good, at doing it.
Yeah. So
it's just, I think it's dangerous if you're doing it, just a little bit, playing, an hour a week or something like that, and that's kind of your thing, then totally. But let's be honest, like, I don't know anybody who just plays an hour a week.
Right.
So
totally. That sounds ridiculous.
That sounds ridiculous. Like, why would you do that? Like, you're a fool. If you're going to play like 40 hours a week,
Thank you to Jack for sharing the beginning of his story with me. As I said, part 2 of Jack's story will release next week, and in that episode we talk about Jack's life post-Afghanistan. We also talk about Relobase, which is an app Jack created that helps service people with their relocation. If you are military and are interested in Relobase, you don't have to wait for the next episode to be released. Just go to relobase.com. Or if you have questions about the app and how it works, you can email Jack directly at jack@relobase.com, and that's relobase.com. Also, I want to put the word out, if you are a veteran and are in the Los Angeles area, my good friend Mark Hawley, who is also a former Marine, he now owns a company called Atlas Defense, and he is having an event Friday, November 10th and Saturday, November 11th in Santa Monica. It's for veterans. It's called Brass Bond SoCal Train and Talk, and it's in honor of the Marine Corps birthday. So November 10th, that's a Friday. Everyone is meeting at the CrossFit Sandbox at 7 p.m. There will be a 45-minute workout and then recovery. And during recovery, Mark's going to host a discussion on mental health. And then Saturday, November 11th, is a group shoot from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. at Pt3 Tactical. And that is also followed up by a conversation on mental health and how to be successful post-military. I will be present for that event with microphones in hand in case anyone has a story they'd like to share. As always, links to all of these are located in this episode's description, wherever you are currently listening to this episode, or you can find them on mostlyminutia.com. Playing underneath this is a song called Drawing the Blinds by the artist Home. You can find more by Home on SoundCloud and bandcamp.com. The cover art for Mostly Minutia, which I love and adore, and it's so cute, it's a painting by the ever stupendous and whimsical Evah Fan. You can find all musings by Evah at evahfan.com. This episode of Mostly Minutia was recorded on location at Epiphany Space in Hollywood, California.